Yeah.
Hey everybody, welcome to our first match of the day at the American 14.1 Men's Straight Pool Championship, coming to you live from Q Master Billiards in Chesapeake Beach, Virginia. I am Darren Frank. I'm here with my father, Michael Frank, and we're going to be calling this match for you. We have Ruslan Chinahov from the Russian Federation playing Oliver Szolnoki from Hungary. I think he's our first Hungarian player to ever play in this event, which is a very international field, especially this year. And both great straight pool players here. Szolnoki is quite young, but has already run over 200 balls before. Ruslan is our defending champion. Since we didn't have the event last year, he won the event in 2019. And so this should be a great match. Do you have an early favorite here, Michael?
Well, I've only of the two, I've only seen Ruslan play, and I've seen him play a number of times, and he's just a terrific player. So I don't know if I have a sentimental favorite, but I certainly could understand if he would be the favorite to win the match. Although the field is representative of really the best players in the world, so it's hard to say that any of these individuals couldn't win or run out. We've seen, I don't know how many runs over 175 balls already, at least a half dozen. And right at the current moment, Josh Filler has the high run for the tournament, which I believe is 210 balls.
213.
213 balls.
He broke Shane's high run, which was 210.
That's right.
Shane ran 210, and Joshua ran 213. And we had a 194, a 187, a 181. That would be Victor Zielinski ran 194. Mario, he ran, I think, 186. Mika Immonen ran 181. I know Torsten Homan has run over 100 in 3 of his first 4 matches.
Yes.
So also just some great play going on here. So this is our last round of the round robin. We will have 2 more round robin matches today. This one at noon and then another one at 2:30 this afternoon. Also, our ladies division is starting today. Kicks off today, so that's excellent. We've got some great players here. Excited that they're here playing some straight pool. Did he call the 2?
So
he just called the 2 ball.
Oliver has called the 2 ball, which is in the back of the rack. So he's going to try and kiss off the 13 ball, I think, into that 2 balls frozen behind the rack, and make the 2. No, he hit it. He could hit it.
Nice shot.
Yeah. Did he kick off the ball?
No, he shot the 1 into it. 3-ball combination.
Oh, okay, 3-ball combination, yeah. So that was a terrific shot by Oliver Szolnoki.
And I think that they play this game a lot more in Europe, and a lot of the younger players grow up playing it, in contrast to here where a lot of players grow up playing 9-ball, so, a bit different. And if you're new to straight pool, the way that you saw Ruslan break, to make a legal break in straight pool, 2 balls need to hit a rail.
And the cue
come
ball.
back toward the rack, and the cue ball will travel around table 3 rails, or sometimes touching the 4th back rail, and you will try and sort of freeze your opponent near that one of the first diamonds on the end rail. And then they can elect to play a shot or play a safety. Ruslan got a little unlucky there. He caught the end ball a little thick. Balls moved a little more than he wanted to. And so ended up wiring up a combination for Oliver, and then to get on top here and have call this a secondary break ball, so you can probably get into these right there. And that's the unfortunate thing about going into the rack on the shallow angle shots like that, is because his angle on the break ball is fairly shallow. You don't get much cue ball travel, and you can get stuck in the rack. He hit kind of in between the 11 and the 14 there, and so didn't get as much movement or separation. You saw the balls kick from the back of the rack, but then he's stuck, and he's fortunate to have this 12 ball right here.
So the point Darren was making earlier about the break, where you have to, when the break, 2 balls at a minimum have to hit the rail and the cue ball. So 4 balls can hit the rail, but if the cue ball doesn't hit the rail, then it's not a legal break. This is perhaps the only game of pool, at least the only one game of pool that I can think of, where the break is a defensive shot and not an offensive shot. So in 9-ball, 10-ball, 8-ball, you're hitting the rack as hard as you can so that you can make balls and continue shooting. In this game, because the object is to make as many balls as you can, and you can play any ball at any time, and they're all worth 1 point. You can't afford to open the rack because you have to call the shot that you're going to make. So, and that would include the break shot. That's why it's played as a defensive shot, and that's what makes the game so skillful. Even though, in theory, you can play any ball at any time, players at this level know exactly what they're going to play next, and they're probably playing 4 to 5 shots ahead. So Oliver's already thinking about his pattern. He's probably going to leave the 4 ball, which is a little bit to the bottom side of the rack. And as you can see, he's opening clusters. Wherever he has a problem that he might not be able to get to, he's trying to get to those as early as he can and open all the balls. So right now, what does it mean when I say open all the balls? It means every ball has a clear pocket. So if you notice, the 1 ball that would be difficult from that area is the 6 ball. So Oliver, I believe, try to get the 8 ball out of there as soon as he can, so that there's a clear pocket for the 6 ball.
Absolutely.
So now once every ball has an open pocket, he's down to the last 5 balls. So he knows exactly what pattern he wants to play to leave the 4 ball for his break ball. So we'll learn something here to see how he plays the rack out.
Do you think he'll want to leave the 7 for the key? I mean, typically players
I
like to
think
come
he's
from
gonna
the
leave
up
the
table
6
ball,
ball.
but that's a little off angle and
yeah.
farther up, and it is hard.
I think
People
he's
should
going to
note
go
this too, where it's hard.
I think he's going to
14,
go
15,
7,
7,
6. And he'll try and get a little angle on the 6 away from the rail so he can bounce out and leave the cue ball on the break shot angle for the 4. So his pattern here, as Darren and I are thinking, will be the 14, 15, 7, 6. So he's looking for what angle he needs on the 7 ball so he can get a good angle on the 6 ball. And by angle, we mean he doesn't want to be straight on the 6 ball. He wants to be angled so that it'll bounce a little bit off the rail and give him position for the break ball. So here he's pocketing the 6. He's probably happy with the shot he just made because it gives him a pretty good angle for just to draw up a little bit. He'll try and get it up, the cue ball up around the side pocket, but about 3 or 4 inches off of the rail toward the center of the table, 3 or 4 inches away from the rail.
Right, and going back to what happened to him earlier on the secondary break ball when he got stuck in the top of the stack, he will want a sharper angle for this shot.
There you go. So he's got a sharp angle.
His goal is not to leave himself the easiest break ball because you make the shot a lot harder on yourself if you don't have much angle. You have to really overpower the shot to get separation from the rack, whereas if you are closer to the rail and you have a thinner cut angle, you can hit the ball at a much more natural speed and get a lot of separation. And from where he is, he will be looking at going into one of the top 2 balls, which are one of the better balls to hit because it's fairly impossible to get stuck if you hit him from that angle. So he's a little bit shallower now. I think he had a little bit more of an angle on the 6 than he would have wanted otherwise. So, I mean, still he got through that rack nicely and, looked very smooth with the pattern. So don't anticipate any problems, but now he will have to hit this ball much harder than he would if he were 3 or 4 inches toward the side pocket on the right-hand side of your screen.
So perhaps 90% of the time, the players will get a break ball, which they prefer, which is somewhere near the side of either side of the rack, either right or left. Now, depending on where that ball is, whether it's high on the rack or low on the rack, they're going to hit it differently. So in this case, is that high on the rack, Darren?
I think he's fairly high on the rack.
It's high on the rack. So it's toward the front of the rack is high on the rack. Toward the back of the rack is low on the rack. So he's high on the rack. So here, he will try to go and hit the 2 front balls and open the rack. He'll probably hit slightly between the 1st and 2nd ball. And I suspect from here he would use draw, not follow. Or he would use stun and not follow. If he follows, there's a good chance he would scratch off the rack. So they won't they won't follow from the lower portion, from the top portion of the rack when they have a break shot.
Yeah, you see follow from the lower portion of the rack in there. What he was looking at when you saw him put his cue across the pocket like that was just the angle of the shot, and so you could see the tangent line. So what he's trying to predict is where in the rack he's going to hit.
Yeah, there you
And
go.
so he did hit that with follow, which is a pretty
Yeah,
interesting
he
choice
did.
and quite risky actually because of the shape of the rack that the ball can pretty easily slide or get kicked toward that bottom pocket. Also, typically, they play break shots where the cue ball will come up table. You're much more likely to get stuck without a shot underneath the rack
Behind
than
the
you
rack,
are on,
yeah.
on top of the rack. And so if he were to play more toward the middle, you know, he must have been worried that he was hitting in between balls and that he would get stuck with low
Well,
English because that can happen also. So if he was hitting full into a ball, draw is more likely.
My guess is he's probably practiced that particular shot himself 1,000 times, and that's the best action he gets on the ball. You know, for him, he knows he played that shot like he had played it many times before.
Sure.
So I think he's anticipated what the reaction was. And what was interesting to me about that shot was the cue ball delayed before it went forward. So he knew he was going to go into the rack and then come forward. But
he didn't hit it with a ton of spin. I mean, it's quite a stun follow.
yeah,
He hit
no,
that
that's
ball
exactly right. That's exactly right. Its own momentum push it forward.
And that's a little unfortunate. I think he's got the 11 ball here, but I don't know if he can see the 2. That's what he's looking at to try and figure out if he can make that ball. And then
Yeah, I think he may be able to. I guess he can
he's
play
going to shoot the 11,
Yeah.
I think. But pretty good separation here. He's got a couple small little clusters he needs to work through, get rid of that. Kind of 7. I think the 7 goes in the absence of the stripe in the lower right-hand corner, and then he'll try and come around and probably shoot the 14 in the lower left-hand corner, which will free up the path of the 8 and the 5. So we'll see if he chooses to solve it that way. Some players would choose to go into this, but I think the more experienced players would prefer not to go into balls generally if they didn't have to. That's more of a last resort. So there's a way to do this without doing that. So we'll have to see what Mr. Szolnoki does, but.
So the question and the I guess the thing to learn for all of us from that shot is the great players, when they aren't exactly sure what they want to do, will go to the center of the table because the center of the table is going to give him the most options. Myself, on the shot before he shot that ball, I would have probably come forward to play the 2 ball, which would be an amateur's mistake, even though I've been playing the game for 50 years. So I learn something every time I watch these individuals play.
Well, and I don't think it's that right now he could tell you exactly how he's going to play.
No, but he knows what he wants to do. He wants to
knows
break
what he
all the
wants to
clusters
do.
up. He's
Well,
got to break the clusters
And to
up.
have an intention and some sort of a plan where I think the area position point is quite relevant, where if they can play position for a single ball versus playing position for multiple balls, and you will often play position for multiple balls, a single ball position being a little risky if you overrun it a little bit, underrun it a little bit. The margin for error in this game is quite small compared to some of the short rack games like 9-ball set, or that if you're on the right angle,
Yeah, where all the
you can
balls
be
are open,
on
right.
and off for a foot,
Right.
so it's not a big deal. But so
This is,
he'll in this, so he did have an angle to shoot that ball off without going into the 5 or the 8, and so he is able to then free the path for those balls, and so.
So his interest now is in opening up every ball has a pocket, and as we talked about in the first rack, and in this case, just not leaving himself safe when he has to do something out of the ordinary. Now here, I think he really did want to get rid of that ball
He came a little too far there.
on the top rail, and is that the top rail?
It is.
Yeah, top rail. So the ball closest to the top rail, I guess, is the 3 ball, and he wanted to get a hold of it. Now, they get rid of it because it's isolated where it is, and he doesn't want to have to keep coming back for it or being worried about when he's going to get to it. My guess is he's going to shoot it anyway. Now,
I think he will, because he doesn't want
it's
to leave
the right
it until
shot.
later, and,
I mean,
and this is a very makeable shot for him. And this is one of the benefits of playing at this level, honestly, and some of the differences
they
between
can
the amateur
always
players.
take the right shot.
Exactly.
Oh, he missed the ball.
I think he maybe
He
misjudged
shot
a
it.
little deflection
He
there.
shot it
or,
into the
yeah,
rail.
He didn't.
Yeah.
It was not his
All
usual
right,
strike.
so
So maybe just some
this
early
is,
match jitters, or we'll see.
He did jump up a little on that
He
shot.
did hop up.
So,
So, and I think one of the, keys to success in this game is to punish your opponent for their mistakes.
Well,
And so
the other
we will-
thing there is his position was perfect, so he got exactly where he wanted to
Mhm.
with the cue ball, and I think the learning objective there is that you have to keep thinking about the shot and not where the cue ball is going.
Mm.
So you think you really don't move until the ball's in the hole.
Mm-hmm.
You stay down on the ball. It's pretty much like any other sport.
Well, and often the misses in this game that you see from the top players are not balls that you would expect them to miss, and it seems
That's right.
that they
That's right.
a lot of the balls
That's
that they
right.
miss they take for granted.
Yeah.
Or in another game,
or they're
where
thinking.
your sole focus would be on, because this is such a cue ball control dependent game, that their focus gets divided a bit between.
Yeah, they're concentrating on
where the ball's
where
going to go.
where the cue ball's going, and they take the shot for granted.
Yes, that does happen.
That actually was a pretty easy shot for him.
Mm-hmm.
The 3-ball we're talking about, the 3-ball he missed.
And see, this is a choice that I really like, because you could say, well, he could have just pocketed the.
Oh, he's going to be in trouble.
Yeah, he overran that a bit, but that was
He's
the right.
okay. Yeah.
I think people would question why he shot that ball instead of the 9-ball, because he was pretty straight in on the 9.
Oh, yeah,
and
so.
he already had the perfect angle on the 1. So when you have position, don't play position. I think, as Buddy Hall famously said.
Buddy Hall's famous line: "When you have position,
So
don't play position."
So he had good position on that 1 ball in an angle way to get where he wanted, and so now we'll see him try and sort of fight his way back in the line, because he is now out of line, has to make a couple shots that I think for him are not particularly difficult, but if I was in this position, that may have ended my run, right? So.
Well, speaking of the great Buddy Hall, who I had the pleasure of watching play many, many, many times in my earlier days, he said, Mike Sigel told me that of all the people that he played in the finals in particular, that his hardest finals was against Buddy Hall. And he said the reason was that Buddy Hall never beat himself.
I remember Sigel saying that.
Oh, that's right. We were there at the same time.
Yeah. Buddy Hall, a great player. Very interesting style too. A lot of one-rail position where
one rail.
Many players would favor multiple rails.
Oh, almost
to
all
control
of them
speed
favor multiple rails. Most players, when they're playing positional ball, favor hitting more than one rail coming toward that ball, because in that way you're always coming toward the ball from the angle you want it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Buddy Hall was very unusual, and he just played one rail position up and down the table, but served him well.
Certainly did. One of the all-time greats for
One
sure.
of the all-time greats.
That's pretty interesting. He hit that
Ruslan did not hit that good, actually. He would have expected to get way more out of that rack than that.
Yeah, either that. He racked it himself, so I don't know if he just racked it a little loosely, or I don't know. I would have expected him to hit that a little harder. I think what he was probably concerned about was the scratch, hitting that harder. But it's pretty hard to scratch from that angle. So typically your scratches come on shallower angles, where you're like coming down the side of the rack, when the cue ball's more toward the center of the table.
Oh, he fouled.
Oh.
Ruslan fouled and gave up the table. That's what happened. Exactly what happened there. Ruslan must have touched the ball and called the foul on himself.
So for the viewers, we are playing all ball fouls. So that means that if your sleeve brushes a ball when you're bridging
finger
over
touches
it,
the
or
ball.
finger touches
If the finger touches
it
the
doesn't
ball.
matter if it's a cue ball or the object ball. Any ball on the table, if you foul any ball on the table, you have to give your shot up, and you get -1.
So that is strictly a gentleman's call. He has to call that foul on himself, and he did. So he gets very high marks for that. Actually, sportsmanlike conduct in a very meaningful match for him, and pretty high stakes here.
And so it just happens a lot when it's quite difficult to bridge over 3 balls. It's pretty easy for his shaft here to say touch the 3 ball, or if when he stood up for a second there, I thought maybe he fouled too.
No. Yeah.
But because if you disturb these balls, it's interesting. Like you remember in the opening rack where he had the lined up combination, and if you disturb these balls, you may make a ball dead, meaning that you can hit somewhere in the rack and that ball will fly into the corner pocket, or you could mess up a dead ball. And Obviously you don't want to do that. So
Yeah, I have a
All ball
feeling
fouls,
his
really.
hand just brushed the ball
Mhm.
a little bit, and he was honest enough to call it because he wasn't even down on the shot yet. So
Right.
he just probably put his hand down and
Ooh, it's hard to bridge over that many balls.
it
I
is,
mean,
but actually
he should have
in
made
this
that ball.
field, that ball has to be makeable for you. You're going to have trouble.
Mhm.
So kind of the good news is where that ball landed. It's a ball that Ruslan now who's back at the table has to worry about getting to
Mhm.
because it's a pretty tough shot from no matter where you're going to shoot it.
Yeah, I can't tell how far exactly it is from the side pocket,
Yeah,
and whether that increases the difficulty. But I think he's okay.
the problem is it takes away landing the cue. Well, maybe he's going to shoot it now and get it out of there.
Well, and you will, but that or he was playing for the 11-7, and was playing under it to try and go into the rack. But he got too high on the ball.
Yeah,
That's
he's
a possibility too. But he will want to get rid of this as soon as possible. I think the great players they do not leave the balls clustered up. That they go after the.
Oh, wow. Okay, so you see, even though he knew the percentage of making that shot had a lot of things difficult about it, it was going to be very hard no matter what he did with it, he still went to get the problem ball out of the way.
Mhm.
And the thing that separates people who can improve dramatically at this game and end up running a lot of balls is that kind of play where they're willing to go to the hardest shot if it's the right shot and take it when they have to. That's probably never the way I played the game. I was always looking for the balls that were easiest to make, but and I put myself in the ranks of a decent player at one point in my playing days, but it did hold me back from improving. I will say that.
Mhm. Well, it's quite interesting. I think the way that you play the game has to change somewhat depending on where you are on the skill curve, I suppose. But the same's true in the rotation games, where when you start, you have to play position for distance to the object ball because your shot making is not good enough that it will hold up over the longer distances. But then once you get better, you start just playing for angle because it's not material whether you are 3 or 4 feet away from the object ball. That additional foot doesn't make a difference really in your percentages, where when you start it does. So I think the same thing in this game where, when you start out, some of these players don't do what I was saying in terms of area position, that if you watch a guy like Josh Filler, to some extent Torsten also, Torsten Homan, that they do play for a lot of single ball positions because they feel so confident they can do it, or they'll play for long single ball positions where they'll leave themselves a 7-foot shot. It's not a big deal for a guy like Joshua. So it's quite interesting the different stylistic components of that. And so what he tried to do there was just create as much angle as possible. Shooting that ball that way was really the only way he was going to get into the rack and create any separation. So he managed to do that, but there was always a peril he was going to get stuck. So when you come low off the rack like that, and when that ball's frozen to the rail, if the 5 ball would have been frozen, and he would have shot it that way, then he would have, was it the 5 or the 4? Anyway, the purple that he shot that he would have had more velocity to go into the rack and gotten some more separation, probably not gotten stuck. So anyway, I think here he's just seeing what's makeable, and we can tell by the time he's taking that the answer is not much.
Yeah, they're struggling here in the early stages of this particular match. I don't expect that'll continue. I do expect somebody's going to pop off and run some balls here, but in the meantime, they're, I guess, I don't really think it's the jitters. They've been playing long enough now for the last few days.
I think conditions mostly. Where over time, table changes, cloth gets played on a little bit, and those things kind of change slightly. So let's see what he does here. He might have to spin this ball if he's trying to make it, or he's shooting it up table.
Oh, no.
Yeah, shooting up table.
So
A tough shot under any circumstance. It's quite interesting optically what happens when you're looking at a ball like that and your view is partially obstructed. This happens a lot in straight pool, and you think you're looking plainly at the ball, but because, say, in that situation, the 1 ball was in your field of vision, where normally you could see the whole 3 ball, that it changes the way you undercut. I heard John Schmidt talking about that one time, where he said he had a tendency to undercut those balls all the time when there was a ball in the visual field. Because of that you don't really see the line cleanly. And so just that you have to be really careful on those shots.
I think a good tip for anybody who wants to improve their game also is to stay down on the ball until it's in the pocket. Sometimes a good way to do that is just when you shoot to count to 5 before you move.
You do see a lot of mistakes made when
People
players
jump up.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's probably the most common here.
see that quite often. So here, Ruslan will just be trying to figure out what's his best way to get into these. I see a lot of amateur players here that would try and draw this ball up and come into the balls that way. You really don't get much speed like that. It's a really great way to get stuck. It is hard to predict exactly which ball you're going to run into when you do that, and so he will not favor that kind of shot. I think he will probably try and come out on top of the rack from here. And he, I believe, came a bit farther there than he.
Yeah, it came a little further than he wanted.
Than he wanted to. So you just see some speed control issues early on, which I'm always amazed at how fast they adapt to those. So we'll just see, how he adjusts over time. But just the way the rails are bouncing, and this is the first match of the day, so the cloth bed is not quite as warm, or the humidity hasn't affected it as much, and so we'll just see what he does. Wow.
Ooh, good shot.
And usually when you see a shot in a straight pool like that, it is not what was intended. That was a get out of trouble shot that he had to come with one, and in any run you're going to have that to some degree, but the name of the game here sort of is to keep yourself out of trouble, because even for him that is not the highest percentage shot on the table, most likely.
Well, pool in general has always fascinated me, because at some point, somewhere in the game, it comes down to shooting.
It does, and I think this could be seen as a more conservative game, or there's a defense aspect of it. The break is defensive. You often end up in safety battles and things like that, but in the end, the winners shoot. I mean, and that it has become, I think, some of that.
And they have the
changing.
highest percentage of, they make the most break shots, they make the most. But at some point in the game, they're going to have to shoot a shot that they don't want to shoot, and you've really got to make them. Because the penalties do great if you miss in this game.
Well, that's part of the problem, is any of these guys can just run out from here. We're playing to 125 points, and so for them to run 100 balls is I don't want to say it's not difficult, but at their level it is.
It's probably been done, 18 times here in the last couple of days. This field of straight pool players in the 53 years I've been watching the game is absolutely, unquestionably the best field I've seen in straight pool ever. There are just so many capable players here. It's unbelievable. And the number of runs that we've seen, over 100 or more, really justifies that. They're just generally deadly when they get an opening. So we have a feeling that Ruslan Chinahov's break ball will be the 12 ball, which is on my right. If you're watching your TV screen, it's probably on your left. And he'll leave that for his break shot. So he'll be coming back to play the 15. And then my guess is he'll play the 15 in the corner, same pocket he's playing the 11 in, or 13. And that will give him the shot he wants on the 12 ball. Now I suspect here he's going to use English to go to the top rack and spin into the side rail, just like that, and come up. Now they are willing to take this angle.
Yeah, quite difficult. Because I think the normal way to play that, the normal way to play that for the viewers too is not to play it that way, following off two rails like that. Because I think the more traditional way would be for him to have be on the other side of the key ball, which is the ball before the break ball. and then sort of just draw out a little bit or stun over a little bit.
Well, he may have
and,
gotten.
and use no rails. So I think he came a little bit too far.
He got
on that
out of the
ball.
line, yeah, he
that's
did.
why
So he had to
hit
go
that
that way.
ball
He had
like
to go that way.
And just again with the speed control and how much that impacts down the road. In this
In
game.
any event, a lot of the players like this angle, and that and he's probably not going to miss this ball, and he's going to slaughter the rack. So that's his objective, and
yeah, and you saw how
he did not hit that hard.
Yeah, I was going to say you saw how softly
he hit that. He also knew though, physically Ruslan is a tall guy. And he's got a long stroke, so he proportionally has to put less power into his stroke to accomplish as much as somebody else might have to use a harder stroke to do. And the other thing is he's a very experienced straight pool player and a great one. So
yeah, I asked him one time, I said, do they play, because I played him when he won the tournament last year, where he had the courtesy to only run 118 on me, so I did get a shot in that match. But I asked him, I said, did they play a lot of straight pool in Russia? And he just looked at me totally deadpan, and he said, no, but you just play by yourself. So he likes the game quite a bit, and apparently he practices it a lot, as do a lot of the top players, I think. Even I was listening to Alvin Ocean speak, and he said that somebody asked him what he did in practice and what kind of drills he did, and he said he didn't. He said all he did was play straight pool and practice a break.
yeah.
Even if he has a 9-ball tournament or something coming up, he'll play straight pool and then he'll practice the 9-ball break.
And the reason he plays straight pool is because straight pool, when I was younger, straight pool was the foundational game. I mean, you learned straight pool because it taught you to break up clusters. It taught you to hit balls hard. It taught you to hit balls easily, to roll balls. And it taught you to play patterns. So kind of every shot comes up in it, and it's a game of nuances and finesse. Today, many of the great players do not have a straight pool background, and it's a different. It's different learning the rotational games first as opposed to learning straight pool first. But in any event, today primarily people learn the rotational games first. So, and obviously many of them are really outstanding players.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it could be an argument as to which is the best way to learn pool.
Probably whichever way you like in the end. So I think here he just wants to come over and solve that problem of the middle cluster. I actually think he wanted to do that 2 shots ago, but it's interesting to see then how they maneuver themselves back over to where they need to go. And so there he was doing something we call just manufacturing a break ball. So he hit that with the intention of pushing that 8-ball out a few inches and making himself a nice break shot. He didn't have one. Typically to attempt to manufacture one is more of an advanced technique in how well that they do it, but I think it's something that looks easy or unintentional, but it is anything but. I think to control the speed of the ball like that, and also the cue ball to stay in line. And here he's got a nice connect the dots pattern of he'll just play a stop shot, or maybe bring it back a touch, and then he'll just stop this ball more or less, or float up an inch or two. And on this, all he really cared about was being below the 14.
So he'll just stick right there.
Right. So if you're above it, that becomes a much harder shot because you're coming into the angle. He'd be going away from it. He'd be going toward the rail. But to be below it, he can always float up table a little bit more. And like I was talking about angle, it's not materially more difficult for him to make that ball.
No, it's all right. Who put that there?
Okay, so we're all set. So, nice break shot there, coming all the way up and down the table. So that's a different one than we've seen from him, but quite effective, as you can tell. So,
what's the run he's on, actually?
I think he started at 9, so he's on about 24 balls here.
So Ruslan Chinahov's on a 25-ball run now.
Mm-hmm. So not a lot of problems here. I think he'll clear off some of these balls, maybe get this ball by the rail, come down, take off some of the lower balls, and I think most of those balls should go. So I think the 9 ball will go, 7 will go, and then he won't have to really run into these unless
As soon as he gets the 10 out of the way, every ball has a pocket.
Mm-hmm.
So his goal here is he's probably not going to disturb too much. He may try to make a little bit better break shot than he has now, which is probably the 7 ball.
Yeah, he may bump this up.
So he may bump a ball out, which he just did. So that's called manufacturing a break shot, which is what he did. He bumped the 4 ball out, and that will, unless something changes, that will be his break shot, unless he has to play that for some reason. I don't see that happening, but could.
It's an interesting thing that
was an interesting shot there.
I think he just didn't have angle, and so he didn't really have somewhere to go that would get him a shot.
That was an awfully risky shot.
So I think interesting too that they will I don't know, take those kinds of shots when they sort of don't need to, but
yeah.
He'll be okay here. I mean, that turned out fine. He had, I guess, a little bit of a safety ball in the way of that.
From the way the balls were, it would be pretty unusual to see somebody have to go 3 rails for position. Right. So he obviously got out of line on something he was trying to do.
For sure.
I think he was trying to bump the 2 and play the 7 ball. So he's going to go for it now. And why he just didn't roll over and play the 6 ball, I'm not sure of from one of those shots.
And that ball did not go cleanly. That he undercut that ball a little bit, and so, you know, even they're not immune to the effects of getting out of line. If he had undercut that just slightly more, that ball would not have gone.
So what we're watching here is a truly great player shoot himself out of trouble.
Right, exactly.
Right, he got himself into trouble, but he's good enough to shoot his way out of it. If it's somebody who plays at my level, I just put my cue in its case and go home.
And I think there he wanted to stop shy of that a little bit and probably play the 2 ball, but
yeah, he's okay. He'll just
okay.
roll forward for this.
And play the 2.
Yeah, he's just 2 stick shots after this. So he's going to play the 9, then stick on the 2 and play the 5.
Yeah, he came too far though, so he's going to have to come.
Yeah, he's
either 2 rails around to the right side of the screen, or he can come a rail down, a little inside. So just preference here, I think, how he plays this. But
so both players having a little bit of trouble getting the speed exactly where they want it.
Mm-hmm. So now he's fine.
So now he will.
He probably will come to the rail and back out.
Yeah, but he'll come about 3 inches out of the rail for it. Well, he came way over this time,
yeah,
so
he's farther than I would expect.
Yeah, he came over far enough, but he still has a wide angle to cut this ball in.
Well, and he'll either
and he can hit this hard,
or he can, if he's going to hit a little bit lower than the top ball flush, he can draw this ball back to the top of the table the same way he did with the last break shot. So we'll just see what he's doing as to preference, but you know, he's put a nice little run together here. So
that's lower on the rack than I thought, the 4 ball.
Mm-hmm.
So here he can't follow. He must.
Yeah, he's going to draw this ball back. So
he's
got
to
walk
draw
over
this
to the
ball
left
back.
side of your screen to see where that's going to hit the sack.
The rule of thumb is when the break ball is near the top, the bottom 2 balls, you don't follow. You got to draw.
See, that's interesting. I mean,
yeah, he didn't pop it. He doesn't hit them hard, does he? The break shots.
Yeah, the last one, I think.
He doesn't hit them hard.
The last one he hit pretty hard. I would have expected him to draw that ball, but you know, sometimes if they think it's going to hit a certain part of the rack, and it's going to track toward one of the top 2 pockets, because the danger with drawing the break ball all the way back to the end rail and back out is that you'll scratch in one of the top corner pockets. And so maybe he felt like that angle was not tracking enough toward the center of the table for his liking. So,
interestingly, the modern straight pull players, younger straight pull players not my generation by decades, they hit the break shots way harder than the classically trained straight pull players. The classically trained straight pull player had to go into the rack 2 or 3 times to get all the balls open. That's
Mhm.
pretty much the way Ruslan
Mhm.
is playing, which is different. And the reason that many other pool players like Thorsten Holman can hit the rack so hard is because the cloth and the balls are much different than the older cloth that used to be played on. And the balls that were used, did not take the spins the way these balls. These balls are perfect resonant balls. They take the spins exactly as expected. They open up really well. So it's kind of a different game. But it is nice to see how a really controlled straight pool player goes through a rack several times to run balls. And that's what we're seeing in Ruslan here. So if you notice, he didn't hit that shot hard either. He's content to just knock a few balls out each time, and he's confident enough in his position play and pattern play that he's going to get to all the balls and be able to open them enough times to run racks and racks and racks. And we know that's true.
That did solve a lot of problems. So
yeah, he did. He has almost every pocket's open now. He's got to get the five out of the way. Right.
And then everything is then open, and it is pretty amazing to watch how it goes from clustered and seemingly difficult to pick apart, and then 2 shots later everything's open.
Yes.
So the way they do that and the way they pick the shots is great to watch.
And the reason that they're content, the reason a player like Ruslan, who obviously would have the power to hit the balls as hard as he wanted, doesn't do that is because the harder you hit, the less accurate you are. So he's willing to sacrifice a little bit of. He's willing to go into the rack more than one time to open it up and continue his run, as opposed to hitting it once really hard and trying to break up the balls all over the place, because he feels that he's much more accurate by just playing the way he plays. And he's probably right, actually.
That's pretty interesting too. I thought he would stay
there and play the
11.
I did too. So he has something else totally in mind, and I'm not sure exactly what it is right now, to be honest with you. I wonder
if he doesn't like the position of those balls and wants to be somewhere he could break something out.
Yeah, there's a reason that he wants to.
Or maybe this combo is wired. Okay.
Oh,
so
that's what it is. Yeah, the combo's dead.
It's dead, so he's going to go ahead and play that.
So now he's
got a choice. He could use the 6 as a break ball also, although not a great way to get on it
from
anywhere he
So
is.
now he has to travel way more than he wants to.
He's got to come all the way.
He's got to go from the 5 to the 2 to the 6 to the 12 ball. Is that the 12 or the 15?
I think it's a 12.
So he has to go to the down to the 6 and then back out for the break shot again.
And he's fine here, but
so here's a question he will.
A lot of players
looks
would
like
just
he's
come
coming
straight up one rail here, but we'll see what he does.
Good shot. Good call, Darren. All right.
But again, he's pretty shallow on this ball, and then, if you're not wanting to hit them particularly hard, you would rather not hit them particularly hard from more of an angle than you would from this, because he's just not going to get a lot of separation from this rack if he hits it the way that he's been hitting it traditionally.
So Ruslan on a run of?
I think about 60. So
started with 9.
52. I think he started with 9, I believe.
Right. We're speculating it was 9, so he's right on a run of 52 balls.
And the players are responsible for keeping their own score. We are using the Q-Score scoring system. If you go to qscore.com and you look up 14.1, you can see all of the live scoring from the event. So they're keeping their scores on tablets by the table and also on paper as a backup, just in case something would go wrong. Keep track of high runs and all of that. In the event of ties in the round robin, we go to head-to-head and then to ball differential. It starts to count, so how many points your opponent's got against you can matter in this. In the event of a tie, to advance to the single elimination stage, which starts tonight for the men. Ruslan gonna pick these apart in his style. You think he'll shoot the 1 here and then bump into the 7? I don't think so. Go to the 2 ball. he may shoot that combination on the 4-9.
The reason he may not have shot the one there is because if for some reason he has to go above the rack, or below the rack, actually, the full rack, then he'd have an 11 or 1 ball as possible shots. So they're always thinking about if they have to do something that they don't expect to do, will they have a shot? Which is advanced thinking for straight pull. So you don't know what he's going to do here. Maybe
Stay low and play the 3 ball.
They can see that, yeah. Okay. So this is a good example of why he left the 1 and 11, because he's going to have to shoot one of those next, I think.
I think he's going to just come one rail out more towards the center of the table and take whichever of those balls.
He got pretty far out of line there.
He got farther than he wanted to. And interesting here is, even if he shoots this ball, which is not a more difficult shot than I think he would have liked, it looks like he'll run into the 15. He may draw to the side rail and back out and try to get a better angle on the 1. Okay, or come down for the 11. So, and this one of the perils of waiting and not busting the rack out, and sort of an argument for some of the other game, is that you run out of chances to hit the rack. So he's just going to draw into that, and he got almost no separation.
Well, I have to say, far be it from me to to second guess that shot, but I think I would have tried to come in off the 2 balls in the back, the 14 and the 5. As opposed to, and he may have been trying to do that and just been a little off, because he did not have a great angle from that prior shot into the rack. On the other hand, he may have just wanted to be sure he didn't get stuck in the rack.
And I think he was trying to hit him there, actually. I think he was trying to go into him. You get into a place where if you wait too long to break the cluster
it's
up,
getting
then
harder
you just,
and harder. Yeah.
Right, and you just try and hit him with everything you have. I don't know if that 15 goes. If it goes, he may have an easier time.
I can't tell from here. I suspect it goes.
I mean, the way he played that.
Yeah, I suspect it goes. So he's got a shot on the 15, which will allow him to open up the rack.
But then the question is, what's he going to wind up with for a break ball?
Oh, I think these will split nicely. I do. Yeah, he's going to.
Yeah, not really.
Yeah,
because now he needs to shoot the 7, and then.
Well, he did draw it back, though. I mean, I guess it's all preference, and I don't know. It just seemed to me he could have hit that.
I mean, it's not like he hit it poorly. It's just
no, he could have hit it fuller and just been down in that general area, but he wasn't. He decided not to do that, and I would have to readily concede that he plays pool 50 times better than I do.
Everybody makes mistakes, though. I mean, when you're down at the table, it's not. There's a lot going on. You're on the stream. You're under the pressure, and.
So here he's got a problem because both of these balls are in the rack. So he's going to have to.
Well, he may play the lower ball.
Well, let's see what he does. He may try to bump it.
The ball to the top
he may
spot.
try to bump it.
No.
Yes, he did. Yeah, he did. He tried to bump it. What he's trying to do there was knock the 14 ball out of the rack with the cue ball.
And leave the cue ball in the rack.
That would have given him a break shot. So now he's in the somewhat awkward position of having to shoot the 14 ball from where he is. If both the cue ball and the 14 would have ended up in the rack, the 14 would have been re-racked, and the cue ball would be where the 14 is now. But it's not. So this actually is not a bad break shot. It'll come off the bottom cushion and the side cushion into the rack if he shoots it that way, and I think he'll shoot it that way. I think he's going to hit this pretty solid.
Oh yeah.
And try to break the rack.
Very
there
nice.
You go.
Like that.
So a wonderful shot. Really a wonderful shot.
Yeah, it was a pretty shot. It was. I like that one.
So
a nice round of applause from the appreciative audience.
Yes, and he can probably do that all day long.
That's pretty cool. They have bleachers here. I never knew. This is my first time here, and when I seen these bleachers, I was like, nice. That's pretty sweet.
Very nice setup. If you guys are in the Virginia Beach area, come on down and watch. Admission's free. Come check this out. We got some great matches.
And we have some great sponsors, including Q Master Billiards, where we're holding the tournament. We also want to thank Predator Q's for their sponsorship. pool tournament would not be possible without Predator Cues. I want to thank Bob Hewlett for his sponsorship.
So, Ruslan here getting into another rack.
And Simonis Cloth. So we have 3 really terrific sponsors, and then
Many more sort of rotating in your top right-hand corner there. So please check them out. They keep this event going, and please show them your support. If you like the event, the best way to support it is to support the sponsors. So, thank you very much to Upstate Al and son Christopher here doing the stream for us and doing an excellent job. So we're very happy to have them.
Thanks, Darren. I appreciate that. I'm trying.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
over here
it's
trying.
You're
doing a great
You're
job.
doing
I guess I do
great,
good under
Christopher.
pressure.
got great cameras and great photography, and
Yeah.
it's really a pleasure to have to work with both Al and his son Christopher.
It's cool. This is pretty neat. I like it. I've always watched pool, even when my father was younger. 9, 10 years old, and run around the pool or playing the video games. While Pop's playing billiards in the corner,
Okay. So not nearly as many problems in this rack as the last one. So
There's the ball.
Ruslan's gonna get through these just fine, I think. You'd probably favor leaving the 11 ball here so far. It was quite interesting. I think they don't get too married to a break ball where, if it turns out that he's got to shoot it for some reason, he's not too worried about doing that, whether that's skill at manufacturing one or just confidence in the shot making. I see players that are just picking the game up for the first time try and do that pretty early, where they'll try and pick a break ball immediately after breaking the rack and then try not to shoot it for any reason, and it makes the game a lot more difficult on yourself than it needs to be. And on the table next to us, we have Torsten Homan playing Miska Fortunsky, who I believe just put together a big run. He got a nice round of applause after missing and bringing Torsten up to the table, so to see what he can do. One of the hard things about this game, just mentally, it's so tough, I think, one, for the shooting player, because you have to give every shot equal respect and equal concentration, and a slip in concentration will cost you quite severely, even on an easy shot. But also, the seated player, if
There's another rack.
if they have been sitting a long time while a player's running balls, imagine if Ruslan doesn't show any signs of missing, but if he were to miss, Oliver's been sitting in his chair for quite a while now, and so
This is an extremely tough game mentally, because when the other player is shooting, the opponent is just sitting in the chair, and unlike the shorter rack games where people get up much more frequently, not only is the player who's sitting in his chair have to be able to perform when he gets up, but the player who's shooting has to maintain that level of concentration for the entire time he's at the table. So there is no mental break. It's constant concentration. So, right now, I suppose Ruslan has been shooting consecutively for probably 45 minutes or so.
That's about right. So
if he goes on a longer run, it could be up to an hour and a half or 2 hours that he just has to concentrate on every shot. It's quite difficult. And then Oliver has to be able to get up and perform if Ruslan misses, and not easy. Not easy. There is no warm-up shots or practice shots. You got to bend over and shoot.
It always amazed me when you could see somebody get up out of the chair after an opponent put a long run on them and come back with a long run. I think that's one of the most impressive things in pool. Because also, just keeping your morale up when you're sitting in the chair,
Yeah,
just
exactly.
watching the guy.
Sure, just watching somebody else run
points
balls.
up on the board, yeah. It's got to be one of the harder things in sports. I think it's one of the only games where you are never guaranteed an opportunity
to shoot again
Yeah.
after the break shot. No, that's very true.
What's one of the reasons we play the round robin format is that, in a single or even double elimination game, you could break and get run out on, and just never have an opportunity to turn in any kind of a performance, which would be a frustrating way to enter a tournament for these players. And so to have the round robin, you're guaranteed the 5 matches, and that over the course of those you will get them, because even at this level, and we've seen it, players make mistakes. And right on the table next to us, Misko Fortunski defeating Torsten Homan. So Misko part of the Polish contingent here at the tournament. We have 3 players from Poland here, all excellent players. They play in the schools there. They have a school billiard program, and so quite strong. I think Ruslan here just figuring out how he's going to get on this 10 ball, right? So I think the bottom right-hand corner stripe, if he was not in line to stop that. So I think trying to take a wide angle, he would like to get that off and clear the pocket for the 3 ball and the 9 ball. The other balls are not problematic. And so that really is his last challenge in this rack. So we'll see if here he follows forward a little bit. He has a nice key ball in the 2 ball to get on the 8 ball. So he'll take this off. He may come under the 3 here. Let's see what he does. Okay, he went into them, which I wasn't expecting, but I think he
wanted to
ran
shoot
out.
the
Well,
3
yeah,
next,
when he ran out of options to get on the
Yeah.
balls. This is not quite easy. Now he has to go off of his, I think, intended pattern. I think he'll have to shoot the 2 ball after this, and then come back down for the 3, and then come up for the 8. Whereas he would have rather done that in the other order, and not come from below the 8 ball to on top of the 8 ball.
A point of interest for those of you trying to develop your pool game, you'll notice when this level of player shoots balls in the side pocket, they're always shooting to the outside of the pocket. So when they have an angle, I'm not talking about when the ball's straight in, but when they have an angle, they shoot to the outside of the pocket. So essentially, they're really not playing it in the center. They're playing it to hit either one of the cushions, depending on which side of the pocket they're on. They're shooting it to pass that point in the pocket. And it took me a long time to realize that, actually. Watching them over the years, I noticed that. And that, in a very real way, gives them a bigger viewing point.
Otherwise, you're always shooting at a half pocket.
Yes, otherwise you're shooting at a half pocket. Oh, my.
And so he hit that a little harder than his normal speed, and I think
Just concentration.
You saw the danger of coming from under the ball, on top of the ball, because he got a little shorter than he would have wanted. He would have liked another kind of 6 inches or so. But Ruslan there, a great performance, running almost 100 balls.
Yeah, almost 100 balls. 94 balls.
I think 92.
92.
Oh, no, you're right. I did that backwards. 94.
94 balls.
So I think a 94 ball run.
So it was a 94 ball run for Ruslan.
So now we'll see what Mr. Szolnoki can do.
Yeah.
So he will come to the table, having sat down and watched his opponent almost win the match from him. I'm sure he's happy to be back at the table. He knows he was not guaranteed the option, so we'll have to see. But he's been sitting for a while. His arm is cold.
This is the pressure and the beauty of straight pull in one way.
Unfortunately for him, Ruslan did spread the balls wide open, and so he has a relatively easier rack to look at now than he otherwise would have. So not many problems here for him, I think, other than the 11-10 cluster there, which he'll try and break up. He's got a pretty easy layout there. It doesn't look like that goes in the corner, so he probably will go into those balls at some point. And you can see what he's doing there, just sort of treating the balls in clusters and groups, and so he's just picking off that up table group. And and taking care of those balls, and then he'll come down table and take care of those. And players do that to avoid going up and down the table too many times, and that a lot of times they will clear balls in an area. So that's something I've seen advised a lot for kind of beginning players too. It's just when you look at the table, don't try and look at all 14 balls at once. Pick them out in groups and clusters. And so, you know, here you could say like the 1-9-5 and you know, the balls in the center, the 4 balls in the center of the table, and then you've got the 6-8 over on the other side, and you've got the 10-11. And to think of those as clusters and, you know, kind of independent and clear them off that way.
There we go.
Okay, so he's going to come down table and try and clear off some of these balls underneath the rack. So I suspect we'll see him take the 1-5-9 here. Although he needs to figure out a way before he clears off too many balls that he can get into the 10 and 11. So I'll have to figure out a strategy for doing that. I think that, you know, it's likely he'll use one of those center balls to do that. You know, if the 4 ball goes, that would be a likely choice, but currently that's his only kind of feasible break ball. So interesting to leave the 9 there.
So our tournament here in Virginia Beach this year is in its 15th. This is his 16th year. Started in 2005 with a total prize fund of $700, $500 to the winner, $200 for second. And here we are, $10,000 for first and $6,000 for second in the men's division. And for the first year, we've started a women's division, which has a $5,000 first prize and a $3,000 second prize, I believe. And it pays down further down. Both divisions pay further down. I just don't remember all the prize fund breakouts. And the contributions of our sponsors have grown every year to help support the game. That Simonis Cloth, Predator have been long-term sponsors. Bob Hewitt has been a long-term sponsor.
I think what he's looking at here is just how to get on the 11 in the side. So he's thinking if he can get straight and shoot the 12 up table and where that stop shot would give him. I actually think he wanted to come forward a little bit because he has a bit of an angle now. So he really wanted to be straight on this ball into the corner unless he can see the 11 from here, which it looks obstructed. So if that's the case, he really needed another sort of ball rotation forward, not a stop shot, but a little gentle follow. So, you know, he may be able to hold this ball up and then shoot the, there we go. So it looked on my screen like he had more angle than he had, but now he's able to solve that 11 and 10 ball problem. But not an easy end of the rack here. So he's not quite natural on anything, and then he has to get back on the 15 ball and the 9, which I suspect will come second to last before the 10. Okay, so from here we'll play the 9, then I think the 15 and the 10. And that will have been a really nice out. I think he waited a little long to solve that 11-10 problem, and so that became difficult in the end there. Ooh, and he did not want to rub that ball.
He didn't want to do that. So now he's left himself in he has real problems here. He cannot make the 4, he cannot make the 11, and if he shoots, he's on a bad angle to bank the 10. He's on a bad angle to cut it in the corner, and he's on a bad angle to bank it cross sides. So this is going to be interesting to see how this little problem gets solved.
Well, and even if the bank is makeable.
He called the bank. He
yeah,
called
which,
the bank.
You know, I think
So
it
this is a
but
pretty
then,
tough shot.
well,
I personally would have looked at the possibility of kissing the 4 off the 11 into the opposite side corner pocket myself, because that actually looks like a very good angle for me. But he's okay here. He played
I think
safe.
a little
guess.
bit of a
Played two-way shot.
two-way
yeah.
shot there. I think he was trying to come straight off the bottom rail and come
I do
back up
too.
into the position, draw that off.
Yeah.
But I mean, quite difficult to do that and make the bank. So, but it seems to have worked out okay.
It worked out okay because Ruslan now really is in a very
Maybe, but
difficult position. Well, he's got to shoot the 10 ball, and I don't know that he's going to come back. Did he play safe, or we don't know yet? Did he play safe, or?
Yeah, that's a safe. I mean,
It's the best he could do from there, I guess.
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean,
So-
he could have, taken a foul, I suppose,
Yeah.
or done something different.
So it's kind of an interesting strategy now because Ruslan enjoys a significant lead, and Oliver Szolnoki now has to decide whether he wants to take a chance and bank this and go more aggressive, because if he turns the table over, he's probably not going to get another shot. So we'll see what he's doing here. Did he call a shot? Or
I didn't see him call the
No, I don't
pocket,
think he
so
called a
think
shot
he called
either.
the bank. Yeah, he hit that
He
too
played
soft, so he
safe.
played safe.
So now we're seeing a safety battle in the middle of the table for 1 ball. Because both of them know that even if they pocket this ball, they're probably not going to have a shot on the 4 or... Well, there's a very nice shot. There is a very nice shot.
There's just not much leverage to pocketing the ball at that point. Even
yeah.
if they could make it, they're unlikely to get another shot.
So I do not think the 10 ball passes. It might, in which case Oliver
Pretty low
Szolnoki
percentage shot,
has
though.
he's got a shot, but he's not going to have.
Well, but
very
even
good
if you
position.
make it, you're not going
Yes.
to get anywhere that you can make either the.
Okay, there you go.
That was nice.
Yeah, that was a good shot. Okay, so now we're going back and forth on the safety play.
And this is just first person to sort of flinch or make a mistake is going to get the bad outcome here. So we'll have to see what happens. Sometimes I think this is where you see some of the biggest skill differentials in the safety play.
Well, it's certainly
Players
that way in the shorter games.
Mm-hmm.
In the rotational games,
Mhm.
I mean, there's, basically everybody can shoot. And the difference is, if you really think about it, in my opinion anyway, it's the difference in their ability to kick shots and safety plays, control the cue ball.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about control of the cue ball. And if you boil this game down, it's all about control of the cue ball. And you have to get
This would be
pretty
quite
exact
aggressive.
position.
He just looked at the 15-10 combo. Or the 11-10.
I really don't know if he's going to do that.
Yeah, that's. I mean, it would win him the rack, but I mean, he's looked quite hard at it. I admire the courage. The 10 is fairly close to the pocket and off the rail, so he's got the semi-decent margin for error here. This is not a ball that I would want to shoot.
Depending on how much he can hit of the 11 ball. I mean, it really depends on how much you can hit. I don't think he can hit. He may be going off the rail
he may
here.
just not like his other options.
Oh, he's
where-
going off the rail, I think.
That's very hard.
Oh, great shot.
Oh, wow.
That's a one-pocket shot, folks, if
Yeah,
you don't know
very-
how to play one pocket.
Very difficult shot.
He moved
there.
the ball away from the rail and left the cue ball.
Mm-hmm. Well, and just a touch, you need a lot of
Yeah,
accuracy for that shot.
You need
because
a
if
lot of
he had hit just
cue ball control.
a centimeter lower on that ball, he would have scratched.
Yeah,
So
He
very
did.
good control.
Yeah, that was
very good
an excellent shot. However, he left.
Right. I mean, a view of the ball, and so I think just bunting this back, and now we're in a
Now
similar
we're back in the
position that we
same-
were a couple shots
Right.
ago. So we will see what Oliver elects to do now.
Well, it's apparent that Oliver does not want to take the flyer. He does not want to take the wild shot, even though he's behind.
Mm-hmm.
And even though in many ways, this is a pocketable shot.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very difficult shot, but nonetheless pocketable. He's not going to play it. He's going to play safe. So he'll detend to the back rail and make the cue ball come up and try and hide. It's a good shot. Really excellent shot there.
Mm-hmm.
He played
So he's
safe.
he's hitting the 10 ball from Ruslan there, which
Yes, he's hitting the 10
is
ball.
great. And then he's looking at the, is he going to line up the billiard? Maybe he's going to shoot the 15. I mean, quite a difficult back cut here, but he enjoys a big lead, and I think he feels confident shooting it. And ooh, a nice shot, a nice shot.
Yeah.
So now
We've got to see what they're going to do.
I mean, I think he's gonna, take the up table ball obviously, and just try and get back to the center of the table. So he's got a nice sharp angle to come off the 10 ball and into the rack.
There you go.
So, okay, he needs that to roll
Got
a
a
little
great
bit.
angle. He's got a great angle.
I think he would have liked to been even more toward the center of the table, so I don't think it would materially increase the difficulty of the shot, but it would give him more momentum off of this. He's still, and it's hard to see the exact angle from here because we don't have a direct overhead, but he doesn't have a ton of angle on that shot. So it'll be interesting to see if he elects to try and smash this one, because he'll have to create some momentum with the stroke.
Well, there is a difficulty, and given where the 10 ball is, there's a difficulty in having to hit the 10 ball center, because the cue ball can come straight across, and the big danger on break shots is sticking in the rack. This way, he really doesn't have to worry about that. That cue ball's going to come right off the rack.
Going to the 14.
There you
He
go.
hit that pretty low, but he didn't. I mean, he really didn't get much separation. He got enough. He's got a couple balls
he
out,
did what he wanted to do there.
but
I believe he did exactly what he wanted to do. He came off the side of the rack, and he opened up 4 balls on this side. He ain't going to need much more because he's going to power this ball, and then it'll be over for him. He'll have the rack open. He's fine. He doesn't hit break shots hard. He's actually a really controlled player. It's interesting. Very interesting.
yeah, you don't see it as much in the younger players, but. So here, not a lot of really perilous problems, but I think he'll be okay. He only needs 20 balls, so now he needs 18. So
You have
he has
18 ball.
this is his last full rack that he would need to get through to win the match.
He needs to open the next rack and get 3 balls or so.
Right. So I think what he's thinking about now is just which of those balls go when he clears other balls, so just how to create pass to the pocket for those other balls.
So I wanted to also, I saw Dennis Walsh's name pop up on the screen. I want to thank Dennis Walsh. Dennis has been a longtime supporter of this tournament and a longtime supporter of pool.
Thank you, Dennis.
Yep. You see his name show up on all the contributor lists for the major tournaments. From the Chicago area.
Now, why is he choosing this ball, do you think? It's a pretty interesting choice. And that's, was it quite a bit more difficult than, say, something like a 3 ball? Was he at an angle to the 3 where he would have had to run into the balls?
Well, I think he
wouldn't
wants
have had a shot after, or does he want to get rid of this 9? Because I think, I mean, I don't know that I would have had the confidence to shoot that ball.
Yeah, well, that's,
like that. But
there's
it's
a big
hard
difference between how he plays and how we play.
It's hard to turn down the
yeah,
the easier
big
shot.
difference. So that's the.
I think that's right, though. I think from where he was on the 3 ball before, he couldn't come around the balls.
He couldn't
like
come
that.
around the
I
way
think
he
he would
wanted
have
to,
had to hit them, and so I would have had to just accept that it wasn't going to turn out the way that I wanted, and make the 3 ball and hope that things turn out in some decent way and I have a shot. But the confidence that they have to take a shot, which will create a better outcome for them, is really impressive.
Well, looking at it from my perspective and my age, I would have to say that the young Mr. Chinahov is wise beyond his years. I mean, he really knows what he's doing. He has excellent, not only shooting abilities, but he's really got a terrific mind for playing the patterns out. Not to say he hasn't struggled here, you know.
No, he has. I mean, he
hasn't
definitely
struggled.
has.
And actually, Oliver hasn't missed many balls really either. He hasn't been left much, you know, in many ways. So some of it is the circumstances you find yourself in.
Delicate little shot there, very pretty. Ruslan has a very interesting style, that long, you know, relatively slow stroke. And he holds the cue very loosely in his backhand. He's a long cue. He's tall. He's about 6'4".
He is a big guy.
So he uses an extension on that cue. Is relatively heavy.
What's his break shot? There you go.
He had to make it.
There goes his break shot.
So for the last 6 or so balls, just trying to get himself into a position to
play the 14, and then he'll leave the 5 ball as his key ball. He'll probably roll down. But look at this shot. This is going to be a terrific shot. Just a terrific shot there. He really had to make that angle in order to get back on the 5. Now he's a little straighter than he wanted to be. He's straighter. On the other hand, that was a great shot.
And he just took a step over to see if he wanted to accept this or not. His only other option is to draw at the end rail, which would likely get him too shallow. So we'll see what he does here. I imagine he's going to stop it and take it.
Yeah, he's going to take the wider angle.
And so, you know, this
Gosh, I can't even imagine playing that shot on a break shot.
If he if he makes this ball pretty much match,
2,
I mean, so he will only need.
No, he needs. I'm sorry, he needs 9
4
balls.
Yeah.
So he needs a break shot and 8 more. He's got a wide angle break shot.
So we should expect to see.
Can he actually shoot that shot?
Yeah, sure. I think it looks steeper because of the camera placement at the foot of the table. Whereas if we had a direct overhead, you would see it be a little less steep.
I don't know, man. It's a pretty steep shot for me.
It is steep, but I think, you know, for him it's doable. So I think given the disregard he has shown for the other shots, I don't think this would present him with a ton of problems.
Great player. So they all have to shoot. When you play at this level, you have to be able to shoot. And that ball went dead in the center of the pocket.
Dead in the center. And he got a bonus for it.
Never a doubt.
The table rewarded him for a difficulty
so
point there.
2 balls there, which puts him at 119.
So he needs 4. He's at 121. He needs 4.
Oh, he needs 4?
Yep.
So
on 3.
On 3. He's going to concede.
Okay. So Oliver conceded. Ruslan had a wide open rack. A very nice match. Congratulations to Ruslan, our defending champion, showing why he's the defending champion. And so he will be back in the single elimination stage. I believe Mr. Szolnoki will also still be back in the elimination stage. I think that he did well enough overall in the round robin to